Welcome, Christina. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. So, start off by introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about who you are and where folks can find you, and then we'll jump in.
Thank you. So I am a licensed therapist based in New Hampshire, and I specialize in OCD, anxiety, and I'm pretty open about the fact that I am a clinician with lived experience in these areas. So I talk a lot about that on my social media, on my Instagram. And I'm also part of the board of directors for OCD New Hampshire, which is an affiliate of the IOCDF. So we do a lot of community events here in New Hampshire. And yeah, I'm also licensed in a couple other states and do coaching worldwide.
Awesome. And where can folks find you?
Physically or
Like
virtually.
on Instagram and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, Instagram at Christina Councils.
Cool. So we started working together 6 months ago. Tell me a bit about where you were at then. How did you feel in your practice with Instagram, email, your other offerings? Just kind of give us the rundown.
So I started my private practice about, at that point, it was like 2.5 years. Just growing it organically. I had mentors here and there, but hadn't really worked with a business coach yet. And I felt like I had hit a little bit of a roadblock with what I could accomplish. My growth online was pretty slow. I wasn't really seeing those big, viral things happening. And I was just doing, again, like organic marketing through Google and referrals.
Yeah.
And it was fine, but I just kept feeling like I was hitting my head against a wall and it felt like I was in the grind constantly to get new clients and to also get my social media visible to people. So, yeah, I felt like I had done okay on my own up to that point, but I definitely needed help. And I had been following you for a while on Instagram and took some of your free or affordable
Yeah.
trainings and yeah, just decided to take a leap and do some coaching this past 6 months.
Very cool. And I want to give a little bit more context for numbers because I think it's always helpful. Like what can feel slow for one person, I think can also feel like the dream for others. So I do want to be upfront with that. You had about like 16,000 followers when we started working together. You had 400 email subscribers. I think if I remember correctly, your caseload was like kind of mostly full, like maybe 70, 80%. And you had launched some other offerings, but weren't like they didn't go quite as well as you would hope that they did. Does that feel true or?
Yes, that's true. And I guess, 16,000, like that's not a small number,
Yeah.
but I think it had been around that number for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then with my offerings, it didn't really go very far and I didn't really have a plan around it. And then my caseload was full, quote unquote, but it was always like this rotating door of I don't know who's coming in. I don't know when people are leaving, right? Because with therapy, it's so variable. There's, people are coming and going all the time depending on life and
Yeah.
what's going on. So it wasn't consistent, I would
Yeah.
say.
Did it feel like hard to get new clients? Like did you feel anxious around like when an opening would come up of how you would fill that spot or?
Yeah, because I almost felt like I was never in control of it,
Yeah.
but more of just at the whim and we'll see sort of mentality,
Yeah.
where now I feel much more like I can have that prediction of how my caseload's going to be.
Totally. And we're going to talk today about like specifically what you did that worked, but I want to start off by giving people context around your journey just because I think that that's so helpful. So tell us a bit about where you're at now, 6 months later.
So 6 months later, I consistently have people interested in working with me, which is really exciting. And I've expanded my offers to do more coaching, which is great. I also have launched my course formally. I did it, on my own last year. And so this time I did it more formally and that had great success. So I'm in the process of doing a second launch.
Awesome.
And yeah, and Instagram's going great as far as my engagement. I think that's the biggest thing is I have more interactions with people and I feel like I'm building a little bit more of a community there. And my email list for sure. That was something I neglected.
Yeah.
And especially in our work together, realizing the value of email marketing and building an email list. And
Yeah.
that's still something that's always a work in progress, but I definitely have have expanded on that.
Awesome. So tell me, what was your why behind like starting your Instagram page to begin with? I don't know how long ago you initially started, but what made you want to even show up on Instagram?
I started my Instagram shortly after building my private practice because I had found other therapists doing similar things that I wanted to do via Instagram.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that could be a cool platform to get my face and my name and my voice out there because it was a telehealth practice. So I didn't have a brick and mortar where people could easily find me. So I had to figure out other avenues to get people to know that I existed. And
Yeah.
so I chose Instagram because I personally liked the platform. But again, I didn't have a strategy, I didn't have a plan. I just tried to show up as often as I possibly could. And in that way grew organically. But certainly, the numbers were slow. Um, but it's been so much more than just a marketing platform now. I've made so many personal and professional connections through it. And it's allowed me to have opportunities to be podcast guests and do so many more creative things. So
Yeah.
it's just been a really big tool for my practice.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a similar experience when I started on Instagram. I was just kind of like looking at these other therapists that I looked up to and was like, I kind of want to do that. Like maybe I could
Yeah.
get some clients from there. And it turned into so much more, like you said, of like meeting actual friends there, meeting people in real life, like being able to sell other offers that I don't think that therapists even consider, a lot of the time when they're going into private practice. Um,
Well, it's also a great place for inspiration because, like yourself, seeing other therapists do really amazing things that you wouldn't necessarily think of. And especially in my community, it is such a small community that I don't see a lot of other therapists doing what I want to do or what I'm currently doing. And so to have that inspiration of people online, it's like, oh, this is possible and I could achieve something similar. So that just gives you more of that like oomph to keep going, especially in business where it can be
totally.
really a struggle sometimes.
When you say your community, do you mean like locally or other OCD therapists or?
Locally, for
Yep.
sure, but also other OCD therapists. Obviously, I can't know every single OCD therapist that exists, but certainly the quote unquote big names I've been able to network with,
Yep.
and just seeing what they're achieving and what they're doing is so exciting. And I feel like I also personally have achieved some things that other people look up to as well. So that's really
Totally.
cool.
So tell me a little bit about your why for creating a course, right? Like, why not just go all in on private practice and charge a premium and have, a full caseload? What made you want to create another offering?
I noticed myself getting burnt out only 3 years into my private practice with one on one clients. And I wanted to find something creative and fun and something that I could do more of the work behind the scenes and then just send it out there into the world and see what happens. And with a course specifically, the topic that I wanted to focus on at the time, there wasn't anything like it.
Yeah.
So I saw a gap where uh, there needed there was a need
Yeah.
for it. And so that was also what sparked inspiration to do a course specifically. And then I too just personally struggle with public speaking and doing lives and
She
and
says as
so
she films the podcast episode.
well, podcasts are a little bit easier because they don't have an audience, at least, right now.
Yeah.
So groups wasn't something I was super interested in at the time. And so I was just trying to figure out what is something else I can do that really works with my personality and also still got me out of my comfort zone, but was much more accessible for me.
Yeah.
And then again, serving an audience that needed an additional resource that I was able to provide.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about your course because I think that you did such a good job with not just saying, like, here's a course for OCD, but really helping people to see how it was going to be different, why they needed it, and like what kind of the clear outcome was going to be of going through this course. Tell us a little bit about kind of like your thoughts behind that and what the course was like.
So I originally created the course. I did have help creating it because I know nothing. I knew nothing about creating courses, especially curriculum wise and that
Yeah.
teaching mindset. So a year ago when I first created it, I did have someone help me put together the structure of it, but I had no guidance around marketing or like how to talk about it. And so again, it was just something I put into the world and then it just kind of fizzled out and I didn't give it the attention that it deserved. So this time around, I was like, like I got to revisit that. I need to actually give it its time and attention because I did put so much effort into it, but it wasn't something that I felt super proud of. So I didn't really feel like I had the confidence to talk about it. So that's where I revisited it, revamped the entire thing, and really made it something that I wanted to talk about and I wanted to share. And I think what also helped in the sharing and the talking about it was because I personally benefited and professionally benefited from the topics I was talking about.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing where it wasn't just, I don't know, generic. It was very specific. And it was something that I had a personal investment in and that I wanted other people to know about. So I felt like it was a little bit easier to talk about it because it was actually something I was excited about
Yeah.
and actually something that I didn't have to fake it. It was something
Yeah.
that I had my own personal but also professional experiences and testimonials to back up.
Yeah.
So in that way, it was really easy. I think obviously where I struggle was with the whole marketing side of it, where I needed that guidance and like, okay, I know what I want to say, but how do I say it in a way that makes sense and is easy to understand? Because especially as a therapist, like you get in that clinical brain a lot and you just assume people know what you're talking about when you say certain things, and it's like, no, we gotta like scale that back, and that's where I really needed some guidance on.
For sure. And I think that that's been like to me at least, like the biggest difference between kind of the first iteration of your course and the second one.
Mm-hmm.
So just to be a little bit more specific for people, Christina specializes in treating OCD, but with the ICBT framework. And
Mm-hmm.
so your first course is really like, here's an intro to ICBT. And it could have been, for clinicians, it could have been for people seeking therapy, it could have been for a family member, but it was really just sort of like teaching the principles. And I think what was so different about like how you showed up the second time around was really to help people that were struggling with OCD, that didn't want to do exposures, that had like, the idea of that was awful to them, whether they had tried it before or not. And presenting this as another solution to help them, I think was just like it was so much more like clear and powerful marketing. And it's so clear to me like why somebody would purchase that then, right? Very different than like, let me read a book and kind of understand this framework, to how can I feel better because of this framework? Does that feel true? Or
Yeah, absolutely. The first time around, like I said, at the time there wasn't anything like it, so
Yep.
it was still very clinical in the sense of, yeah, I'm just going to educate you on the principles, but that's all we're going to do. And I think the course itself only had like maybe 2 hours of content.
Yep.
And then the second time around, I'm over like 7 hours of
Oh, wow.
content.
Yeah.
And it was very much like, okay, I'm going to teach you actually how to do this, and
Yep.
we're going to take it step by step. And it's, always a work in progress, but certainly it has received so much more positive feedback and testimonial. And I personally feel much more proud of it
Yep.
because I can put myself in the consumer's shoes and put myself in that state of mind too of where was I when I was learning about ICBT and what did I really need to understand about it and to be able to teach it to other people. And so, yeah, now there are so many more awesome ICBT resources for the community and the general public. But certainly, like, there needs to be more. And I'm just really excited about what else. What else the course can do for people because it is ever evolving.
Yep. So you kind of had launched previously before. What felt different about this most recent launch in terms of like understanding how marketing works and like having a plan behind it?
Oh my gosh, night and day different. Because the first time I did it, I literally just said to my Instagram audience, here it is. And, I had maybe, I can't even think off the top of my head. I probably should have wrote it down, but I think I had like 10 sales, something around that.
Yeah.
And then didn't do anything with it. It was just like, again, fizzled out. This time, there was so much more intention around what I was saying, who I was speaking to, and showing up consistently and sharing that message because it's never just a one and done sort of thing. There's always
Yeah.
new people finding you, seeing your stuff, learning about you. And it's something that needs to be talked about consistently. And I
Yeah.
just didn't have anything of that. I did nothing with email marketing, nothing. And this time around, it was majority email marketing.
Yeah.
Obviously, Instagram as well. But email is where I really tried to focus more of my attention, which was something new
Yeah.
for me.
Let's talk about email for a second. So you've
Mm-hmm.
like five times to your email list in this period of going from like 400 to almost 2,000 subscribers. How did you manage to do that? Like, where were people coming from to even find you and join your email list to begin with?
Well, with Instagram, I had a decent following, and so I wanted to start there and really connecting with my current audience. Like there are all these people who are clearly like interested in what I have to say and what I'm sharing, and so those are the people that I want to connect more with. And also, with social media, it's so tough because it could go away any day. And it's just, I realized how important it is to have other things where people could find me and connect with me. So
Yeah.
email ended up being that thing. So I used Instagram. I used many chat automations, which at the time before working with you, I had gotten rid of because I was like,
Uh-huh.
this isn't working. This is frustrating. This is stressful. I don't know how to do this. And then you were like, no, that's actually like probably what you should be doing. So
Yeah.
I got back on it. I figured out how to use it. And that was really a game changer. That helped me so much. And just making it easier for people to join my email list
Yeah.
rather than going through all these steps and jumping through all these hoops. So ManyChat was a really great tool for that. Excuse me. And then yeah, not just selling. Like I think that was a big thing too of like trying to get out of the mindset that selling is bad or wrong, but also like there has to be more than just selling. And so I've also been changing up my emails to do more connecting, like sharing about more
Yeah.
of like my personal stuff going on. Also sharing tips here, free tips here and there that I won't necessarily talk about on Instagram, but just making it more varied is helpful.
Yeah.
And letting people know too that I'm a real person on the other end, right? And I've got all these things going on and I'm not perfect. And I also use these tools that I talk about, and here's
Yeah.
how I do it. And I think that can be really helpful in just building that trust with with the community.
So there's a few things I want to dive into a little bit. So first, for anyone who's not sure what ManyChat is, I'm sure you've seen it on Instagram, even if you have not known that you've been using it. So it's sort of the feature where people tell you at the end of a post or a reel, comment and they give you a specific word. And then when you comment that word, it then sends you a DM to your inbox with some more information and usually a link. So with the ManyChat feature, were you having people just like comment to join your email list, or were you giving them something free? Like, how are you getting people once ManyChat started working for you to really like comment and be interested in doing that next step that you were directing them to?
Yeah, a few different things. I do have a couple freebies. So I use ManyChat to give people or send people those freebies, which
Mm-hmm.
then, gets people on the email list. I also have used it for my free master classes, my webinars, other projects I have going on, really for everything. And
Yeah.
so I think that was also something that I needed to shift my mindset around was how I used Instagram and how I used these tools as a marketing tool, right? Not just using it as, I think you phrased it, not just using it as like my diary to just
Yeah.
talk about random stuff, but being really intentional with what I'm talking about, who I'm talking to, and then what am I going to lead them to? And so ManyChat for me was just that really nice, like a really nice funnel to direct people to all of these different things I have going on because it can be really overwhelming. Like if you go to someone's website and it's like, okay, I see all these freebies or all these offers. I
Yeah.
don't really know where to go or what's for me. So that's where, if I'm doing a reel about ICBT, okay, I can direct them to my ICBT freebie. And that's just
Yeah.
another way that to serve them specifically for what they need and what they're looking for. But it can get overwhelming with all of these different things. And that was also, not to get too off track, that was also something you really helped me with was having a North Star. And
Yeah.
that's what my course ended up being.
Awesome. So we kind of have like all these multiple freebies, and depending on the post, you're kind of sending people to different ones. Tell me about like how that sort of shifted during your first launch. I know you did a webinar. Tell us like what that was about and kind of what that looked like.
That was something I was really intimidated by, and I had to
Yep.
get out of my comfort zone. Again, not loving public speaking. I was like, I don't really want to do it, but I see the benefit. And
Yep.
also, I just got to do it. I just got to try it. And so I had people register, and I used ManyChat again to connect people to the registration form. I think my goal was to get a couple hundred. Ended up getting over 500 people to register.
Yep.
Not everybody attended live, thank God. But they got the replay after, and I got so much positive feedback from that. And people wanted me to do more things like that. So again, it just validated, okay, there's a need for this. People are interested in what I'm saying and what I have to talk about. And that was the platform I used for my launch for my
Yep.
course.
What was the topic for that free webinar?
It was essentially kind of like what my first course was about, was
Yep.
just like the fundamentals of ICBT and how it can help people recover from OCD without exposures.
Yep.
And so again, this is something that you had to help me with, was let's scale back from like all of the educational content and just speak like a normal person.
Yep.
And that sounds so simple, but again, it was not simple for me.
And I love that you went like full send with it, right? So when we first started talking about a webinar, you were like, I don't know, I don't love public speaking. Do I have to do it? And to really like show up and market your webinar enough that you're getting 500 people to join it is so huge. And so I just want to like stop and commend you for that, of going from this place of like uncertainty, I don't know if I can do it, to once you decided like, okay, I'm going to go for this, you really went all in. And that's huge because that's 500 new people on your email list. That's 500 people, who are getting the opportunity to interact with you for an hour instead of like a 12-second reel. What was that like? I know you said using ManyChat, but like, how did you kind of come up with content? How often were you talking about it? Like, what went into promoting this to really get 500 people to sign up for this free webinar?
Well, I think it was doing what I had already been doing, but again, that intentionality aspect of, okay, like we are really focusing in on this one topic instead of jumping around. There's so much you can talk about with OCD, right?
Yeah.
So I really just wanted to focus on this ideal audience who I knew could benefit from this webinar, from my course, who are looking for this, speaking to that specific person. And I think that helped a lot of being really focused in. I I also have always struggled with, I don't know how many other ways I can talk about this one thing. And that was something that was a bit challenging, but also like really simplifying everything, right? Not overcomplicating it, because that is where you can kind of get stuck in a box of only talking about one thing the
Yeah.
same way all of the time. So showing up on stories and just having a conversation, using my own testimonials, using coaching client testimonials. Um, this, I think, again, what helped me was that there was a need and there
Yeah.
wasn't anything like it at the time. So that was also something where I didn't maybe have to work as hard. Um, but certainly now, with more resources being available, more ICBT resources being available, um, just continuing to talk about the difference around what I do versus what exists.
Yep. And I think what's so cool is that you've made like your own story part of your marketing, and that can
Mm-hmm.
never be like replicated by anybody else, right? And so by showing up like as you, by sharing your own experience with like finding ICBT and what that was like for you in your OCD recovery, I think is so huge and really like setting you apart, and also being like your number one testimonial for people around, is life perfect now? No, but like, can it be so much better and so much more manageable? Like 100%, let me show you the way.
Well, and that was something I found on Instagram specifically. What was really resonating for people and where I was getting the most views and engagement was when I was talking about my own personal stories,
Yeah.
my own lived experiences. And, I think it's great to always give testimonials, but I don't know, for some reason, like they want to see my my realness, which I
Yeah.
think is cool. Also a little scary, but it's just something that also really helped me with my course was, don't be so rigid. Show up as an authentic human, and that means saying that means don't edit out every little flaw and imperfection of what you're saying and how you're saying it, but just show up. And
Yeah.
that also served me so much better the second time recording my course, was just let it flow, talk like a human,
Yeah.
even as I'm doing now, saying like and whatever. And so I did that. I showed up like that on Instagram, and I think that helped a lot.
Totally. So how did your course net out? Like, how many people did you end up enrolling? What was that like for you?
My goal was 16,
Hmm.
15, because I just wanted to make the money back that I invested into it. So I was like, okay, bare minimum, I'll be
Yeah.
happy with this number. And I doubled it. So I got 30 people enrolled, which actually felt really good because I did a few things different this time, where I offered free coaching sessions to the first 10 who signed up.
Yeah.
So that was a big investment in my time and my energy to do that for people. So that also really helped in connecting with my audience as well. It's just like, okay, let's meet face to face
Yeah.
and like nurture you who, invested in this, which is such a huge honor.
Yeah.
And then a Facebook community. So really being involved in that and growing, or being involved in that consistently was also really helpful. Um, so yeah, those were big differences this time around. And I think that also helped with those testimonials too, of like, okay, it's not just a one and done. You're not just like a purchasing it and then bye, and never see you or talk to you ever again. But it's
Yeah.
like, okay, no, we're going to build a connection. I'm going to try to help you as much as I can. And then in exchange, hopefully, you'll talk about it. And that has been the case.
Yep.
for the most part.
That is so huge to like double your launch goal that first time around.
Hmm.
Major kudos. Talk to me about like this decision to decide to offer that like kind of fast action bonus for the first 10 people to join and do a live call. Oftentimes I find with therapists that, you know, we're creating courses because we're tired of being on live sessions all the time.
Hmm.
And so we're wanting something like more scalable and more passive. And so I get a lot of pushback from people when I suggest something really enticing, like, you know,
Hmm.
a live coaching call or something. What was that like for you to decide to offer that as part of your course?
I won't lie, I had
Yep.
that resistance as
Oh, for
well.
sure.
And I think it was, I'm always in the back of my, not the back of my head, but my philosophy is just like, just try it. You're not going
Yeah.
to know if it works for you or doesn't. And so try it, see what you need to modify. And if you really hate it or if it really sucked, you don't have to do it again.
Yep.
But I didn't know. So I was like, I'll just try it. And it was really helpful. And in fact, so helpful that I'm offering it again. So
Yep.
yes, it is a big investment of my time and energy, like I said, whereas this is a free access to me. And I'm really trying to treat these people as if they were a client, even though they're technically not, they're a customer, right?
Yep.
So um, that takes a lot. And this time around, I am modifying it slightly with scheduling, but doing it again because it was helpful and I got a lot of positive feedback. And I actually did get clients from it, one on one clients from it.
Yep. The
So,
coaching clients or
yeah, coaching clients.
yeah, very cool. And that just like adds to the revenue of your course too, right? Of like people
Hmm.
getting this opportunity to experience you and kind of like, I don't want to say a lower ticket way, like your course was still several $100s, but compared to like
Hmm.
a high investment coaching situation, a little bit
Hmm.
more affordable. And then being wowed by that experience and deciding to continue on, I think is huge.
Yeah, because it can be so. Well, I was talking about ICBT specifically in my
Yeah.
course, right? So it's really hard to find a specialist in that. And it's really hard to, it's not impossible, but it is really hard to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
And so, once again, like I think the greater mission and message is that I want people to have as many ICBT resources as they can and try to make it as accessible for people as possible. Um, Whether that's through me or not, but obviously I would love it if it's through me. But I am just one person. And so, yeah, to be able to help people in this way is huge and very rewarding. And it also helps with me and my bandwidth of being able to help, you know, 500 people for a free
Yeah.
webinar versus, 20 clients a week where that's all I have capacity for.
Totally. And I think what's really cool too is like it sets you up for the future. So I know this first
Mm-hmm.
launch was a ton of work for you. Like
Mm-hmm.
filming 7 hours of course material is a lot. Preparing a webinar for 500 people is a lot. All the emails that went into it, the live coaching sessions you did. Um, but to get 30 people in that first launch, it's so cool to see like what's going to happen on the second and the third. You know, who are those 500 people that didn't buy the first time are going to buy the second and the third time around. And so it's really cool that you were able to put like this large amount of effort in up front to build something that just gets more and more passive every time you do it.
I mean, that's the ultimate goal is passive income.
Yep.
It's
More
never
passive.
passive. Yes, more passive is the goal because it's never passive. But it also really, from just a human level, gives me more energy and more capacity to keep working, right?
Yep.
Because it is really hard work. And where I was solely doing one on ones with people, that was my main source of income. And I was, like I said, already getting burnt out and tired. So it's like, well, I don't want to stop, but like,
Yeah.
what else can I do? And I need to modify, I need to figure something out because I'm doing myself and the community a disservice by just tapping out, right?
Yep.
So I had to figure something out, and this gave me a lot of energy back, even though it took so much time. It was fun
Yep.
and it pushed me out of my comfort zone. And I was able to accomplish a lot, which just felt good. Um, from yeah, just learning new things and figuring out what I like and where my strengths and weaknesses lie, and also knowing that I can ask for help and it's good. And oh, I hired a VA for the first time.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. Yeah, I outsourced some stuff like copywriting. That was a big deal. And yeah, just like really cool things besides the course.
Yeah. I love that because it's like you really pointed out that it's about so much more than just like that passive income, right?
Hmm.
That there's this desire to help more people. There's this desire to like get that information out, to reduce your own burnout, to stay in the field. And I think that that is so huge because there's seasons of like more work and less work with anything in business. And that why is what's going to keep pushing you forward versus like, I'm going to make X amount of money on my next launch. That's usually not enough to keep people motivated long term. We really need that like bigger mission and purpose behind it.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are great, but when I get those emails or DMs or comments from people saying that I was able to help them, that is really rewarding, right? Because you don't know. Like, yeah, you'll get the numbers and people purchasing, but it's like, okay, are you using it? Is it
Yeah.
helpful? Like, I don't know. So having that dialogue is huge. And again, it just helps as a therapist to just know that you're making a difference because that's why we do this, right? And obviously, we want to make money. That is important for us to sustain, but it
Totally.
also has to help on that emotional level. And that's what I found with my course and definitely with my Instagram.
Awesome. What advice would you give to therapists who are wanting to launch a course for the first time?
For me personally, it was a huge breakthrough when I got out of my perfectionism mindset of
Yep.
it doesn't have to be perfect because the perfectionism is what's going to hold you back and is what's going to make things more stiff and rigid and not human, right? Like humans are imperfect. So show up as a human. That was huge game changer for me. And really what helped liberate me from feeling like I had to have this perfect script. I had to have these perfect slides. I had to have this perfect recording. I had to show up with my hair done. And I have curly hair, by the way. So that was a nightmare
Yeah.
of just like, it has to look the same every day, which is impossible. So just showing up, doing it, and then you'll get that data and that feedback and that information back. So you'll know what to do differently instead of just feeling like you have to know already in advance because that's what's going to hold you back. So I hope that's helpful for someone. It's certainly helpful for me when you were like, just do it.
Yeah. I think that's so helpful with both like the course creation piece and feeling like you have a product that people are going to actually enjoy to go through. And then also the marketing piece, right? Like I think showing up imperfectly and showing up as yourself has helped you like double your Instagram following, like grow your email list, have all these people in your community who are really interested in you, not just like the perfect information that you're presenting. So I'm like so proud of you for doing that and showing up as fully as yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always a work in progress, but I think especially with therapists, it's really hard to get out of that mindset of blank slate
Yep.
and feeling like you're so afraid to make mistakes and cause harm, right? That
Yeah.
you're so afraid to just talk and just, make mistakes. So yeah, that was a big change from my first course last year to now.
If people want to check you out on Instagram and kind of see what this more like authentic, less perfect content looks like, where can they go ahead and follow you?
Instagram is my main platform. Christina Councils is my handle, and that's where I show up 90% of the time. So yeah, I'd love for people to connect with me there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Christina, for joining me today. And it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast.